My name's Steve and I love people who make things. We're a nation of inventive, inspiring makers.
This room alone will produce 100,000 items a year. But yeah, it used to be full of cows.
And then I'd be, Afghanistan or Iraq, sat in my room just sketching out designs, waiting to come home to play around with them.
I'm on a mission to list the greatest products we make, because if we don't champion the skills on our doorstep, we risk losing them.
Running down to our left, we have hand cutting. The problem is getting labour now.
One of the biggest challenges we have here is our ageing workforce.
Join me as we hear stories from behind the factory doors.
I remember drawing my dad's house and he said, "Why don't you count the bricks?"
Oh, he wanted you to be quiet, didn't he? Do you ever have any sleepless nights, Alex?
I don't sleep.
Together, let's make more makers. Welcome to the factory next door, and welcome to the town of Cleobury in Shropshire. Very pretty it is too. As you approach it in the car, you kind of crest a hill and the town is laid out in front of you. Church spire sticking into the sky. Very nice. You and I are actually just on the edge of it, on a farm. I'm looking out over some fields. Got a couple of industrial units here. And we are here to meet a team crafting the very finest pans. If you're in the food trade, you may well know them. Their pans are loved by food writers, chefs, food critics. It is the team behind Netherton Foundry. Whilst I pop in to introduce myself, have a listen to what's coming up in this week's show.
If you're a real country, you should at least be able to make a frying pan.
Watching it is extraordinary. How long will it take to train someone up to be able to do that?
They want to be absolutely convinced that the product is made here. We have had to send them photographs and videos of us making them. Nigella very kindly baked her famous banana bread in one of our loaf tins, and I think she probably does more for British export than anybody else I know.
What's your bestseller?
There's one product that sells worldwide. Everybody recognises it instantly.
We've just had the most delicious mushroom slice. I'll come back here tomorrow, Neil, if that's okay.
Hi, I'm Neil Currie. I'm the founder and owner of Netherton Foundry.
Okay, Neil, so we've just walked into to your place of work here. Big kind of warehouse. Sat down at a park bench. One of your colleagues very kindly is making us a cup of tea. Much appreciated. Mandy, thank you enormously for the cup of tea.
But what Mandy hasn't told you is she spent all of yesterday looking for somebody's little owl that has escaped.
You lost a little owl?
A little owl went missing in the village, and it's been missing since early December, and I was sat outside having lunch and I just spotted it sat on a fence.
Was this a wild little owl?
It was raised from hatchling, and she's had it for 3 years, and unfortunately it just escaped from this aviary, and yeah, it's been like 2.5 weeks, nearly 3 weeks.
What's he called? Boo. Okay, very best to Boo, the little owl who's out and about here somewhere. Hopefully he gets returned to his owner. Tell me a little bit about what we're looking at here then. Describe the workshop we've got here.
I think actually we're going to have a walk around.
I love a walk. I mean, it was a long drive here, so I'll appreciate a walk.
So we're going to come over to our metal stores here, and you can see we've pre-cut lots of circles of black iron here. And each one of those really sort of represents a pan. We probably make about 140 different individual products. Now, we're not making 140 different pans, but you'd be surprised. We work with lots of chefs who have very strong opinions about things, and I'd like my hand a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, pans a little bit deeper, and they are the sort of people who we find it hard to say no, and we enjoy making them have something that they feel happy to use. So anyway, we'll start off with a disc here, and then we're going to go over now and watch some spinning. What you're seeing is some very ancient machines. These are the spinning machines here were from the 1920s and 30s. These are Wilson spinning machines, and you can see Steve here.
This is absolutely extraordinary. So he's taken that completely flat disc, which I don't know, is that maybe like 15 inches maybe?
Yeah. It is. This particular one is actually, I can now see from here, because we're standing about 6 metres away because it's quite noisy and you don't want to stand behind it, and we're forming it into a wok. Now wok's quite interesting, they're probably one of the thinnest things we spin, and that's only about 1 millimetre thick, because woks you want them to heat up very fast and cool down very fast for stir frying.
But he's taken that flat disc, and then he's using quite a large tool which he's holding kind of under his arm, almost like an oar. Yeah. And as the disc is spun exceedingly fast, he's rubbing it and shaping it into that distinctive wok bowl.
Yeah, once you start getting the metal moving, it starts to flow.
I'm fascinated. Watching it is extraordinary. How long will it take to train someone up to be able to do that?
Well, Ryan over there, who's the manager of this area, he came and started working with us about 4 years ago and started spinning about 3 years ago. And I think he would admit that he can spin about half the shapes that we make. Some things are easier than others. The wok, for example, there is rather difficult. I'm a designer by background. I went to art school, had a few proper jobs working for big companies, designing washing machines and power tools and kettles. But I always made things, and made things for myself. And more than 30 years ago, I decided to venture out on my own and start making things for ourselves. In the early days, it was more about cast iron. But early on, we discovered that whilst cast iron is a great material, it didn't always provide us the performance for pans that we wanted. I then started looking at traditional methods of a more flexible methods, which is where we really came across the style of production we're doing now, which is spinning our pans. People have been spinning metal since the Egyptians. The Egyptians spun copper. But the style of pans that we're making is really a sort of a Victorian manufacturing approach. And it gives us, what it does, it allows us to make a pan to be exactly the right thickness for the job that you need. Simply, that would mean for something like a wok, I'd make it very thin, 1 millimetre thick, so that the heat can go in very fast and out very fast. If you wanted a steak skillet, I'd make it almost like a casting, like 3 millimetres thick, quite really heavy, and that might make it great for cooking a steak. But if you want a regular everyday frying pan, I'd say it's going to be 2 millimetres thick, and that will give you the best overall performance. So what we'll do is we'll tune that metal thickness and spin it to the thickness to get the performance you need.
You mentioned and I don't know how much you want to share, but you mentioned that, you were an industrial designer, designing different appliances, and then you decided to do Netherton. I've kind of got two questions which spring to mind around that. One is, was there a particular driver behind your desire to stop doing that, what you were doing, and switch to this, which is running your own business? And the second is, why pans?
Can I answer that one first?
You
Let me answer that one first. It was actually, it's something about it's so fundamentally basic. And we got to a stage in Britain where nothing was being made here. And we looked at the things that felt like, if you're a proper country, you've got to be able to look after yourself. I kicked around a few ideas, and one was actually to make kettles. The pan business seemed so fundamental that everybody used one, but we were all getting them from all sorts of parts of the world, and they weren't being made here. And it felt like an essential ingredient, something that you should have here. So it was the fact that it was such a basic product that if you're a real country, you should at least be able to make a frying pan. And why then? Well, anybody who knows Netherton Foundry might have noticed that there's just about there is no plastic, there are no chemicals, there are no paints, there are no magic secret ingredient coatings which promise a lot, very simple materials that you can trust and believe in. And that partly became about because for a long time ago I was involved in manufacturing products overseas, and I started to look at the coatings that were on these pans, and I became concerned about the characteristics of these materials. We certainly heard in other parts of Europe they were concerned about things like fertility levels dropping with these wonder coatings. There were also concerns about if these coatings were taken to very high temperatures, they may become carcinogenic. So I really, for myself and my very young family, started to look alternatives. In fact, when I really discovered it, I remember ringing up my wife, and I was overseas at the time, ringing my wife up and say, throw away the pans, we're going to make our own. Right, so we're talking about making pans. Yes. Right, so you can see across here a series of small hand presses. These are called fly presses, and again, it's retro kit. And
I love it. You've got, how many have you got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
These were all produced in the 1920s and 30s in the West Midlands. As you can see, there's a Sweeney and Blockridge from Birmingham there. We've got some from Wolverhampton. They all do slightly different ones, but they again, you can feel that you're making something. You're putting your labour and turning it into a three-dimensional form. And these particular ones that do a couple of different functions. In this case, they're often used for making handles. So we'll bend and shape a handle, but before it gets attached to the pan, we'll do something to it here. We'll put it into a tumbling machine here, typically for about 8 hours, and it's filled with big rocks.
Okay, so it's like a huge bowl. You pour some water in it. It's filled with pebbles, and you throw your iron handles in there, and they shake around rapidly. What's the purpose of this?
Well, it takes the sharp edges off and cleans them.
Dear Factory Next Door community, my name's Lou and my dad is Steve, host of this podcast. When he's not telling me bad jokes, he's recording this show. He's got no team behind him, no agency funding it. He pays for everything. If you can afford to, would you please buy him a coffee so he can keep this show on the road? Go to www.buymeacoffee.com/The Factory Next Door. I'll also put the web address in the About section of the show and on his Instagram page. Thank you for helping to keep my dad busy and out of my hair when I'm trying to play Minecraft. I'll let you return to the show now.
We've been talking about cleaning the handle. Let's go and see what we do to clean the pan before we finish it. So we're going over here to a special machine. It's probably the nearest that we have to something that's high-tech here.
You've got high-tech hands. You don't need high-tech machines.
Well, this comes from Sheffield. So it's an enormous big blue box. It's about 3 meters high, and you put the pan inside this blasting machine for about 3 minutes, and it throws clean pieces of iron grit at the pan. During that process, all the dirt and grime of making is cleaned off it. So you're now looking at a textured finish, bright, shiny pan.
Now then, tell me about that texture, because it becomes almost like really fine sandpaper, very fine sandpaper, the texture on the pans.
And this is critical. Lisa here is just collecting some of these, so we're actually going to follow her. This is the perfect time. We're going to follow Lisa.
Seems a little unsure about us following her.
Well, Lisa is now going into the assembly area here, but she and her colleague Julia have got a very special room.
Thank you. Into a much quieter part of the workshop.
So we've got a clean area here, and this is where we put on our black non-stick finish. Now, What you can see here is Julia and Lisa here are hand wiping on organic flax oil onto the surface of that texture. And it's absolutely critical, and what she's very good at is getting a very, very thin, even finish.
It's a lovely smell. Is that the flax oil I'm smelling?
Yeah. I mean, that's edible flax oil. I mean, this comes from Sussex. As you can now see, they're hanging on these trolleys here, and then they're going to be wheeled into one of 3 purpose-built ovens. Now, our ovens go up to around about 300 degrees. They're very hot, and the pans will be typically in there for about an hour, hour and a half, depending on the amount of load. So we're calling that process of putting on flax oil, putting it into an oven, is seasoning. And seasoning is a very traditional way of getting a rust-proof, non-stick, easy, clean finish.
Seems very appropriate for chef's instruments.
Yeah.
Another set of pans ready to be cooked. They're going into the oven now. Again, they're silvery with that beautiful flax oil. Yeah. And when they come out, they have the distinctive, beautiful black colour.
Warm black colour.
And is that because of the oil then?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a baked finish. I mean, seasoning is something that people have been seasoning iron pans since there have been iron pans. I mean, in Britain, historically, people often use things like pork fat. In China, woks were traditionally seasoned with peanut oil. In Victorian times, flax oil started being used in Britain and is used quite extensively across Northern Europe, Germany, Sweden, and North America. Flax oil that we use is probably, we think, is the very best. It's very black, it's very hard, it's long-lasting, and there's another lovely feature about it. If after a period of time you damage it, you've scraped the surface or something horrible, rather than throwing it away like you might do with a chemically coated non-stick pan, with ours you can go and re-season it yourself, because fundamentally you can do what we do here, you can do at home. You can take your damaged pan, you can wash it, you can dry it, put a layer of flax oil, put it in your oven, and it will come out looking like new. It's a pan for life. You're going to have to stop in a moment with doing this because we're all going to eat. Is that all right?
I understand the importance, visiting these places, of kind of the strict routine on, will you stop now for tea, a little bit of eating?
We're going to eat.
I'm eating as well, excellent.
Yeah. Sue here has created, what do we got here? What's on the menu?
We have cheese scones with butter, a mushroom slice, and then a rocket and tomato salad with dressing.
My word, I'm so hungry now. Right, listeners, you're just going to have to entertain yourselves for a moment. Take an interval, take a break. We'll be back with you in a moment. Okay, so we're back with you. We've just had the most delicious mushroom slice. Very, very nice. I'll come back here tomorrow, Neil, if that's okay. So we're at the end of the warehouse, and it is stacked to the top, full of pans.
We've got a lot of pans. In fact,
you do have a lot of pans, Neil.
We don't actually have anywhere near enough at the moment because it was a very busy Christmas period. This collection of pans here might end up as a few different things. Okay, so for example, here we've got there's a crepe pan. Okay, you might be needing one of those shortly. You know, coming to Pancake Day. It could have a couple of different styles of handle. If you're the sort of cook who likes to put a frying pan in the oven, we might just finish it with a metal handle. But most people tend to like to have our oak handles, and you can see some here. And we'll have a look at the guys here finishing them off.
So this is Millie.
This is
Millie, very nice to meet you, Millie.
Millie's going off for a while. She's going to St Lucia for the next 6 weeks, so we're not going to see her.
Are you not going to miss the cold weather, Millie?
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
well, she's an artist, actually. So what she doesn't realise, when she comes back from St Lucia, she's going to help me on some new packaging design.
What kind of art do you do, Millie?
Mainly watercolour, and I've started doing some illustrations this year. Yeah, it's just something I love doing, so I'll be taking my paints to St Lucia.
Okay, tell me, before you go to St Lucia, tell me what you're doing now.
So I'm just putting a wooden handle on this frying pan.
Why the oak? Why the oak handle? Or should I be asking Neil that?
Yeah.
I'll be asking Neil that. Neil, why oak handles?
We were looking for a material that was seen as local to here, durable, and had character. There are lots of woods which are sometimes used in contact with food, and let's say beech is a classic one, which are great in contact with food, but they don't have as much character. The oak, you instantly feel, wow, I'm looking at something, and everyone's slightly different, and we like that. That pan handle, that pan will be your pan. Nobody else will have one quite the same.
Obviously, these days, you're exceedingly well known. You've got, kind of plenty of Michelin chefs and food writers who use your pans. Early on, was the, kind of how does that come about? Was there a first moment where someone said, "Oh, have you seen that person? They're using your pan," and you're like, "Oh, thank goodness, yes, okay, we're going to be okay because this prominent chef has just used, kind of our Prospector Pan."
A couple of occasions, I think, when that happened, because, as you say, in early years, there was a lot of standing in small food festivals in the mud, saying, "Have you seen our frying pan?" to the passers-by. And it still happens now, actually, but at least they kind of wave at us now. Nigella very kindly baked her famous banana bread in one of our loaf tins. Did seem to amazingly get a lot of coverage. And she's a one-person export industry. To this day, she'll go around the world and mention us to people. And I think she probably does more for British export than anybody else I know.
That's Nigella Lawson, though I'm sure everyone recognised from simply Nigella.
She's a great friend to our company. Good, very, very much. And about the same time, Diana Henry started using our products she wrote a great book a few years ago about oven to table, and she used our Prospector pans. And I think a lot of people and a lot of very serious chefs who follow her, I jokingly say she is the food writer where Michelin-starred chefs read her books in bed at night. Okay. And I think there are a couple of instances when people started to appear on their radar.
Was that the moment where you felt you could kind of breathe and just slightly relax into the company?
No, I don't think it happened quite like that. I don't think it ever stops. And it is nice to now have a range of customers of people who recognise us and know us, and people keep on coming back.
Okay, listen, I am not trying to poke you here with this one, but tell me about selling into Europe.
Well, I wouldn't bother at the moment.
I sense it's become difficult for you.
Yeah. It used to be that a few years ago, people would be able to buy off our website in Brussels as easy as it was in Birmingham. And if you were really lucky, you might order our pan on a Monday in Brussels, and it might be delivered the next day, and it would certainly be there the day after. This has all become much, much more expensive and takes much, much longer. It will probably take a week to arrive, and it will probably cost you at least £10 more. And sometimes it will get stuck in customs. And it's sort of meant that it's getting very difficult. But there's also been a bit of a change where a few years ago, the Made in Britain brand was great. We're proud of making things in Britain. We've got a long heritage of making product here. We're proud of doing it here. But Britain is now seen as difficult and awkward to deal with in a lot of mainland Europe. And so it's much, much harder to sell to the public. Shall we go and have a look at some products on the shelf?
Ooh, we're just going out into the fresh farm air.
Yeah.
Going to have a quick look in your shop, next door to your workshop.
I think it's technically called a trade counter, you see. This is But that sort of infers that you're turning up for spare parts.
And it's done. I love this. It's done in is this an old shipping container that you've placed next to your workshop?
40 foot high cube shipping container. Yeah.
Oh, we're locked out.
We're locked out. Let me go and find.
Okay, Neil. So we've just come into we've got the key. We've been allowed back into your. We've been allowed back into your.
Well, we did have
your
to
showroom
because we had a customer, which is much more important. Okay.
Quick fire question and answer session with you, Neil. What was the first pan you did?
This one here. It's an 8-inch regular frying pan, and naively I thought, probably we only need 3 sizes. I thought I'd do an 8, a 10, and a 12, and nobody will need anything different to that. We found actually that not everybody agreed with me there.
What's your best seller?
There's one product that sells worldwide. Everybody recognises it instantly. So the one single pan is that. It's a wok.
Your best seller is a wok.
Yeah, that's big. And it's a little bit skewed by the fact that actually it probably 10 or 12-inch frying pans, if you add up all the 10 and 12-inch frying pans, that's probably the greatest number. But the single biggest one item is this 13-inch wok. I mean, this particular version, once a year we'll send some to a Chinese department store.
You sell woks to China?
I know. And
hang on, that seems like there's endless... I don't know whether there's puzzlement or jokes to be had there.
Well, we've certainly had a few jokes from it, and of course the thing is for these guys in this Chinese department store, they want to be absolutely convinced that the product is made here, and so we have had to send them photographs and videos of us making them, and we have to get certification from local chamber of commerce to prove that we are the manufacturer and prove that they're actually being made here.
And finally, what's your favourite? The favourite, because you're a designer. You're an industrial designer. Which one is your favourite?
Very, very easy to say. It's a 10-inch Prospector Pan. It's this item here. It's a frying pan, but it's very, very versatile because you can put it in the oven, you can put it under the grill, you can put it on the hob, and you can serve it to the table. And it's got a sort of strange Prospector Pan name, because when we did it on our social media, somebody looked at it and said it looks like a gold panning Prospector Pan, and the name stuck. And I guess we're known for it, and I do love the pan. And it is the one item that I can genuinely say I will use myself every day. Typically I'll have sort of 2 fried eggs for breakfast out of a Prospector Pan. Okay, that's so I can genuinely say I use that every day.
That's a good start to the day. With a family business, I always feel, kind of not wishing to pry. I always want to ask the question about succession, the sense of going forward with the family.
Our son and daughter are both in the business, and it is our hope that they probably think they're running the business now. They probably, they're just waiting for us to.
Are they shouting at the radio? Are they shouting now, saying like, "Yeah, Dad, we are running it. We are, Dad, we are."
Yeah, go and spend more time away from the business. No, we both Sue and I are very, very keen that they take over and we carry on. It would be a pity if what we've developed here and the products we've disappeared over the next few years. It would be great to think that they might have a few more, people can still be buying the same pattern in the next 10 to 15 years. It would be nice.
Neil, thank you so much for taking the time to show us around your amazing workshop and meet your team.
I've enjoyed it. I like talking about our products.
You sound a bit surprised when you say you enjoyed it. Were you worried?
Yes, of course I was.
Okay, number 28 on our list of the greatest products we make here, the Prospector Pan goes in to the shed of greatness. Thanks to Neil and the whole team at Netherton Foundry for welcoming us. I can't say that. Thanks to Neil and the whole team at Netherton Foundry for welcoming us into their workshop. Got there in the end. Just time to give you a quick update on Boo. He's well and getting plenty of food, though he's not yet back home. And wildlife photography Mandy, who we chatted to earlier. I took a look at her Instagram account. Lots of extraordinary photos of spiders. If you're an arachnophile, she's mandy.p.photography. Take a look. Thanks for all your comments following number 27 on our list, the Doorman's Umbrella. Ashley Clark, England, thanks so much. Susan Rose China, I do hope Charles got a new umbrella. Koron Dilev, I couldn't agree more. Time for me to prep for our next show. So wherever you are, whatever you do, I hope you're happy. Until next time, bye.